Welcome to Enterprise Technology Spotlight, and I am Keith Hales with InfoSystems. And the purpose of this podcast and our podcast moving forward are going to be to educate executives around technology so that they can be more involved in those decisions and they can better leverage technology moving forward for their businesses. So we believe that executives should not just pass off the decisions around technology to people under them, but really be much more involved in those decisions so that they can make the best decisions for their business. And so joining me today is Robert Goodwin, our Senior Director of Engineering. So Robert, thanks for joining.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about storage, which is where the data lives in server environments and computer environments. And Robert, your background is actually in storage.
It is, yes.
And so help those who may not be familiar with that terminology get a little bit better understanding of what that means.
Okay, so storage in general, and generally speaking, is the capturing of data and parking it, if you will, in a secure location that can be recalled and read and changed as needed.
So like a hard drive?
A hard drive could be a method of storage, yes.
Okay.
You can also use tape drives. You can use solid state, which is basically storage on memory, if you will. There's many different ways of storing your data.
So why would a company care about what kind of storage technologies, the solid states, the tape drive, why do they care what kind of technologies they invest in?
So it really comes down to how fast do you need your data, how long do you need your data, and how secure do you need your data. So if you want to retrieve it very quickly, then you don't want it on tape. Tape is traditionally slow. You want it on disk or solid state or a flash module.
Okay. So selecting the right type of media or the right platform matters here.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So when do companies make decisions about their data, their storage environment? Is that something that they do all the time, or is that something that they maybe make every few years? Like when does an executive need to be involved?
A general best practice is you use life cycling of equipment, so it's usually a 3 to 5 year, depending on what the financials are behind it. But traditionally, storage engineers or storage administrators will constantly evaluate where the storage lives, what class of storage it lives on, how is it performing, is it meeting the current business needs, and if not, then they will start looking for different products or different solutions to put in place.
Okay, so if I'm in an environment where I'm responsible for the technology, maybe I'm the CEO of a smaller business, or I'm the CFO or controller or something like that at a medium-sized business, or even an IT executive, but I'm not familiar with storage. So what are things I could look for that might tell me that I have a bad storage environment, that maybe it's time for me to refresh or time for me to invest in additional storage technologies?
So the biggest indicator is performance or end user experience. If the end user is constantly complaining about this slow, or I can't get to this data, or this data is unavailable, or it's hard to find, and in other words, if you had what we call storage sprawl, right? Because you made up different islands of storage and they don't necessarily cross-communicate with each other. And it becomes very hard for the user to find their data. Those are key indicators for an executive to look at to say, oh, well, we probably should review and see what we're doing today, because what we did 5 years ago may not be the right decision for today.
Okay. So I think I know the answer to this question, but is storage just hardware? We've talked a lot about hard drives and tapes and solid state drives. Is storage only hardware?
No, it's not only hardware. There's a lot of infrastructure components that allow the storage to talk to the systems, or even internal to systems. There's a lot of software that needs to be applied to it. There's a lot of logical pieces that you have to put together to make a good storage environment and have it operate efficiently.
We'll be back with the Enterprise Tech Spotlight podcast after we pause to recognize our partner, IBM Storage. With all of the data storage locations companies use today, local PC storage, network storage, cloud storage, app storage, it's hard to manage storage space, backups, and cost. Unless you have the right platform like IBM Spectrum Storage, which improves the way you manage, protect, and store your data. Your data is your company's lifeblood, whether it's documents, media files, financial records, or email history. And the way you store, manage, and protect it is crucial. Get your company's data storage right by bringing in InfoSystems. We can help you build, Manage and protect your storage with IBM Spectrum Storage. Now back to the podcast.
Okay. So what about software tools? So if I'm looking to refresh all my servers, maybe I know they're slow, I know that they're out of warranty and it's time. So I need to select the right type of media, the right type of hard drives or solid state drives. And I need to look at all the other components that they talk to. Do I need to concern myself with software, such as maybe backups or how we even manage the system?
You do. You have to look at it from a holistic standpoint. You have to understand what the application layer is doing, what the backup, what is your business continuity or DR, disaster recovery implications are. You have to look at the whole picture because each one of those components can greatly impact what you're doing at the storage level.
Okay. So let's talk about storage in general. Is storage something that stays static in an organization? So if I make a decision today, am I going to need to revisit that every week or month or year or 5 years?
So storage is not static. Nobody deletes anything. We're in the age that it's cheaper to just add more storage, right? Because of that, we continuously have an explosion in data growth, right? If what decision you make today, do you need to look at it weekly or daily? No. It's usually an annual thing to look at. General industry best practices, you review your environment either biannually or annually, not only for capacities, but firmwares and things like that, right? Just to make sure you have a healthy environment. But you strategically look 3 years in advance. Where are we at today and where do we think we're going to be in the future 3 years?
Okay. So I'm trying to look 3 years out, but I'm maybe every 6 months or a year, I'm taking kind of a review. So maybe, besides performance, like what are some other indicators that maybe my storage environment might need to be refreshed, or what's some questions I could ask my technical guys to be sure I feel good about the decisions that we
That's a good question. So a lot of times as technology changes and grows, right? Your system may be 5 years old, but running fine, but you probably really should look at it from a maintenance aspect. Is this system going to be around in 3 years, or is it going to continue to be supported? What is the maintenance cost behind this? Because sometimes it's actually cheaper to buy new storage instead of maintenance in the old storage. You have to look at the overall viability of the media. Whatever, if it's a spinning disk, they have a definite shelf life. Flash storage has a shelf life, so you may be running up against that. Right.
Okay. So I'm familiar with an organization that we're working with right now, and they asked us to do some extended maintenance quotes, and as it turns out, it was going to be cheaper for them to refresh everything to get off of the older, I'll call it, generation of equipment, and on the newer generation of equipment. I think you're familiar with that project as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So are there ways, are there technologies where I don't necessarily just have to continue to pour money into storage? I mean, what are some other things instead of just buying a lot of, faster and more storage? Because you said people don't delete, is there a way to leverage maybe technology like deduplication or compression? What do those mean?
So for deduplication, it's basically looking for duplicate patterns inside your data, and if it has a duplicate pattern, it'll actually put a marker there and then either not write or get rid of the extra data. Compression is like a zip file. You're just crushing the data down to a small format. Right?
Oh, is that always a good idea?
Not necessarily, no, because if you compress, you have to allow for time to expand when you recall the data. So if you have time and speed sensitive data, you don't necessarily want to compress it because it will impact your recovery time, if you will, and recovery in the sense of I need to read it. So in the medical industry, I find that the doctor needs to read that, video or look at the video file or look at a image, an X-ray. You don't want them waiting 5 extra minutes because you compressed the data, right? Mm-hmm. He wants to. If you're the patient, you're going to want them to have it right then.
You want
it
immediately.
Yeah. So because if you're the guy hurt, you want them as fast as possible, and that's why people use. Like the IBM flash systems, right? That's very fast, rapid stuff, right? Mm-hmm. To address the other part of your question, there's information lifecycling, right? I know people don't get rid of data, but there are things you can do to look at it. Can I store this in a tiered manner? Can I push this stuff off the tape? Can I push this into an archive? Is this data even relevant anymore? So, a lot of companies don't do this, but using information lifecycle can help with that, extend the life of your gear and what you're doing, and as well as protect you from liabilities and stuff.
Okay. So from a storage perspective, I heard you say we have to make sure we have the right hardware,
Yep.
the right software. We need to look at things like performance. We need to look at maybe I'll call it even, are we leveraging technologies like deduplication and also compression. What encryption? I've heard this term encryption.
Yeah.
There's encryption sometimes is a bad term because you got the crypto locker. So what does even encryption mean? Because that's the part of the data store, right?
In the good guy sense, encryption is protecting your data in an encrypted format where you basically have, think of it as you got two keys, right? And you encrypt your data and you keep one of the keys. So without the second key, you can't read it. The bad guy can't read your data. If they pull your hard drive out, or if they break into your system and copy your data off, they can't read it without that second key, right? Crypto lockers where they do that in reverse and you can't read your data because you don't have the other key.
Okay.
All right. So if you beat them to the punch by encrypting your data, that protects you from that, potential impact.
Mm-hmm.
Encryption is always a good policy, especially around hypersensitive data and things that are business critical. It does impact performance slightly, but in today's technologies, a lot of the encryption data at rest encryption is done at the hardware level. So you really see no end user impact for that. And you can also do data encryption in flight as it goes across the line. That does impact performance, but it's only a small amount. And in today's world, it's worth the risk or worth the impact versus the risk.
Okay. So one other question. So, the cloud, you and I have had many conversations about the cloud. So do I not have to worry about storage anymore if I just move it to the mythical cloud?
No, you still have concerns, right? What is your data growth? How much, because it's in the cloud and cloud's going to cost you money, even if versus on-prem, they're both going to cost you something. So you want to keep in mind what my performance metric is going to the cloud. What's the pipeline look like between me and the cloud? What kind of security measures, what is it being stored on? They may not ever tell you what it is, but you need to look at your contract and make sure that there are assurances and SLAs in place that your data is still going to be there. You're still responsible for backup and recovery. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean you're golden.
Wait,
right?
So if I just move something to Amazon or Azure or any of the other cloud providers, they're not just backing it up for me?
No, you have to back it up yourself. You still have the responsibility is on your storage team to make sure, or the business, you have a good backup. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean the cloud can't go down. It rains occasionally, so clouds aren't perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So just kind of, is there anything else that maybe I've missed from a technology perspective as a business, owner, business decision maker who's responsible for the technology spend and the storage? Are there things that maybe we haven't covered that need to be addressed or that you think need to be spoken to?
There's a ton of things that, and unfortunately in our format here, we don't have time to dive deep into every piece of it. I think as a recap, you want to pay attention to what your user experience is. You want to pay attention to what your storage footprint looks like, and really the biggest thing I think that businesses fall short on and looking forward is just that, looking out 3 years. Where do you think you're going to be? Because as you size these systems, it's important to make sure that you don't fall too short and then, we've got to go back to the well. We need, hey boss, we got to have more. Or you don't want to overbuy so much that you have unused capacity sitting around, because it does get expensive to have open space.
Yeah. See, I've always seen storage as as important because it's where the business data actually lives, right? So all the systems, whether it's the accounting system or the CRM system, customer data or warehouse management or whatever your business is, that's where all the data lives. And so we have to do a good job making decisions that would be sure we're not only ensuring good performance of all that data, but also that it's protected and that it's available to the business. And then I also am just have this concern about the value of the data, and maybe people don't understand. I mean, it's been said, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's been said before, maybe throughout most of the 1900s, throughout most of the 20th century, that oil was the most valuable resource in the world. But today, it's data.
That is correct. Data is the most valuable thing on the planet today.
Right. So we need to, hopefully, we're providing education, both in this format, then also to our customers and people in the community about how they can, with their likely their most valuable resource, which is their information. Just be sure it's running on the right environment. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And if you have any questions about storage or any other technology topic, just reach out to us and look forward to talking with you or look forward to the next podcast.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.